Each year, Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the feast of Passover. And when he was 12 years old, they went up according to festival custom. After they had completed its days, as they were returning, the boy Jesus remained behind in Jerusalem, but his parents did not know it. Thinking that he was in the caravan, they journeyed for a day and looked for him among their relatives and acquaintances, but not finding him, they returned to Jerusalem to look for him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple, sitting in the midst of the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions, and all who heard him were astounded at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished, and his mother said to him, "Son, why have you done this to us? Your father and I have been looking for you with great anxiety." And he said to them, "Why were you looking for me? Did you not know that I must be in my Father's house?" But they did not understand what he said to them. He went down with them and came to Nazareth and was obedient to them. And his mother kept all these things in her heart. And Jesus advanced in wisdom and age and favor before God and man. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Well, with Holy Family, Feast of Holy Family falling so quickly after Christmas, yesterday, the day before, it's a lot to take in all at once, and so even still, I'm rushed to kind of meditate on these readings and find meaning in them that's practical and applicable for us today. Of course, obedience is going to be the outstanding theme of this gospel, but there's much more than just obedience in here of Jesus. And so let's put a backdrop on this gospel. Of course, the obvious question is going to be how'd they lose their kid, right? I mean, in Mediterranean agrarian societies, first you have to realize that women raise boys and girls together until puberty. And again, this is Jesus in this gospel, he's around the age of 12. So we know that's that transition time, pre-puberty to post-puberty, or in that state of puberty. So before puberty, the mothers, the aunts, the sisters, all the female cousins, they raise all those young children together, including the boys. So the bond that develops between mother and son gives the mother enormous power over the son's life, even into adulthood. That's not entirely strange to us. And then secondly, since boys are highly valued in the male-dominated culture, they are invariably spoiled and pampered by the women. For instance, the boy is breastfed twice as long as the girl, even long after he's able to speak. When he asks for food, he is immediately fed. He concludes that his every word to women is like law. And thirdly, since the boy is raised until puberty to the near complete exclusion of the father or any other male role model, boys enter puberty with an ambiguous identity, and so they do not know how to really act or be like a man. So at puberty, the boy is unceremoniously shoved out of the comfort of the women's world into the harsh and hierarchical men's world. Here, all the men teach the adolescent his proper place and behavior, often by physical punishment or beatings, which he is taught must be suffered in silence without retaliation. The boy naturally concludes that such stoic suffering is one way of demonstrating manliness. Today's gospel is best viewed against this cultural backdrop. So the caravans and traveling and how people travel back then is much different than the way we do it today. So again, how did they lose Jesus And why did Mary and Joseph not figure it out sooner that he was missing would be the obvious questions. So again, people traveled by caravans separately according to gender divisions. So men and boys past the age of puberty, they traveled in one caravan together in one group, while women, young girls, and boys before puberty, they traveled together in a separate group. They only when the caravans stopped to camp for the night did the men and women gather back together as a family, so to speak. So then now, again, since the adolescent Jesus is in the process of transitioning to adulthood, and again, remember, age 13 is like age 25 for us, all right? So our culture at 25, the men or women are establishing themselves. They just graduate from college, etc., and they move on. They start making a name for themselves. This is what Jesus is doing at 13. Okay, so that's where their adulthood takes place. We kind of have to make that transition. So since the adolescent Jesus is in the process of transitioning to adulthood, Joseph, discovering Jesus is not with him and the other men, they naturally assumed he was struggling with the transition into adulthood and ran back to the comfort of the women. And then Mary, on the other hand, not finding Jesus, would have assumed he has transitioned well into adulthood and that he is actually with Joseph and the other men. And so then it would have been one day's travel in the homeward direction when they finally broke for camp and then decided to gather back together, and that's where they discovered he wasn't with either one of them. That would have been about 84 miles away from Jerusalem in the homeward direction towards Nazareth. And so then they went back another day's travel, because you're not going to travel at night. And then after a day of searching, they finally find Jesus in the temple after 3 total days since leaving initially. So when Jesus is finally found, we see him making the transition to the man's world or adulthood just perfectly fine. He's in a group of men, teachers, in the temple, and he's giving evidence of intelligent understanding. Mary, of course, like any mother who has lost her child, still treating Jesus as a child, still with that enormous control over her child, who happens to be the Savior of the world, she's inflicted with calamity or in grieving torment, as you might think when women lose their children or mothers lose their children. And then she reproaches Jesus, asking why he's not behaving better or why he's not behaving more like an adult as he should be. So Jesus, of course, is supposed to be acting more responsibly at this age, and if he were, he would have at least informed Mary or Joseph or some other relative or friend who would be traveling in the caravan of his intention to be absent from the group and in the temple or his father's house. Instead, he did not, apparently. At least we don't know if he did, so it looks like he did not. So then in this group-oriented culture, again, this is a group-oriented culture where most everybody knows everybody's business. All right, so again, in our American society, our Western culture, we like to keep things more private, individual family level. We don't let the cousins and everybody else know what's going on in our immediate families. So here, though, all the cousins know what's going on. Everybody knows what's going on in everybody's lives. So that's a group-oriented culture. So then this behavior by Jesus, it's independent and it's individualistic and it's seen as irresponsible and disrespectful and shameful. So Jesus' less than respectful reproach of Mary is also understandable as male maturity in the Mediterranean world. That also entails becoming liberated from the female control that characterizes early childhood. And so struggling now to trade his mother's tutelage for Joseph's, one could culturally interpret that Jesus is somewhat irritated by her reproach. Again, cultural interpretation. So one may also culturally interpret Jesus' reproach of Joseph, because it was directed at both of them. Why were you both looking for me? He didn't say it that way, but it was intended for both of them. Jesus' reproach of Joseph as well, that likely stems from the fact that Jesus believes Joseph should have had a more aggressive role to assist him in taking his rightful place among the all-male group. And so then here then we have this understanding, of course, Jesus, he's at that transition point. Where is he? Is he with the women? Is he with the men? And what's he doing? Well, he's actually right where he's supposed to be. He's making that transition just fine. He is behaving like a man. He's begun to make his career, so to speak, and make a name for himself. And we're going to remember not the boy Jesus, but that's the man Jesus. When you see him at 13, that's a man. All right. Again, we have to make that cultural transition since most people didn't live to the age of 30 or past 35 or something like that. So again, if you get 80-year-old people, it's really rare that they live that long at the time. So in the end here, the Son of God, who knows God is his Father, he went down to Nazareth with his parents. So he chooses obedience to his parents, which also is the fourth commandment. All right, Jesus, of course, has higher authority, but he chooses obedience to lawful authorities, his parents, adhering to that fourth commandment to honor his father and mother. This is, of course, a commandment from God. So this gets also to the roles of family life, gets to the roles of society. Good, healthy families, they are the building blocks for good societies, healthy societies. And so in choosing obedience, Jesus is fulfilling God's will. And if we want to fulfill God's will, we want to seek to be obedient to him, to his teachings. This makes things easier, makes things happier, makes things better. And of course, then we want to be obedient to lawful authorities that act in God's truth. This is a struggle because lawful authorities might still be lawful authorities, but they don't always act in God's truth. And this is a problem with leadership. It's a problem with anybody who does not act in God's truth. We can't make things up as we go along. It's not arbitrary. And so this is, of course, where we struggle. I've always struggled with my superiors and their activity, and it's always been questionable. Jesus here is seen struggling with his parental authority. And what does he do? Well, he chooses to fulfill God's will. He goes down to Nazareth. All right, he's working, so to speak. He's establishing himself in society. He's being a man. And here comes his mom, and he wants to take him away from his work. It's like, what are you worried about? Why would mom be worried about a 25-year-old if he's missing for a few hours or a couple days? Eventually he's going to call, right? Okay, so, all right. So again, it's this transition point and this understanding of obedience to God. We definitely want to be obedient to God. We obey, God's law is revealed in the scriptures. That's the divine law. Divine law of God then funnels down to us in the natural law. And civil law is supposed to participate in natural law because natural law is something that's always good for us. It seeks the good of ourselves. So we don't always understand that. So obedience to lawful authorities, acting in God's truth, this fulfills God's will. It advances wise, good, peaceful families and societies. And to seek God's will and act on it then, this keeps our sight focused on Jesus. We always want to stay focused on Jesus. That's where our livelihood is. What does Jesus say? How would Jesus respond to this situation? Look what happens in this situation with Jesus. Here comes his mom trying to harsh his gig, so to speak, trying to pull him out of his where he's supposed to be, and he goes, okay, I gotta go now, guys. Mom's calling. All right. So what do we do? All right, so this is what even Jesus, the Son of God, and he knows who he is. He knows what he's supposed to be doing, okay, but he still remains respectful in that regard in obeying his parents' wishes. But he does know who he is, and he does know what he's about. So proper behavior and adherence to church's teachings, this is going to lead to greater understanding. We wonder often about what's happening in the world and what's happening with our lives. And we just have to keep looking at Jesus and keep looking at those scriptures. And that's what's going to reveal the truth to us. The answers are found in Jesus. Everything God says is in one capital W word, which he spoke, Greek word logos, Jesus. He speaks and the word became flesh. All right, and that is, of course, a reminder to us of where our livelihood is, where our life is. It's in Jesus. And so then it's a simple lesson in seeking obedience to God. The Son of God, it's good enough for the Son of God to be obedient to his parents or the lawful authorities who are acting in God's truth. So it should be good enough for us.